Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of TV Thursday. This week I'm going to tackle Castlevania, the new series on Netflix that had its first season launch last week. First season being a loose term, but their term, since it's only 4 episodes in the season, but first season nonetheless. So here are my thoughts on Castlevania Season 1. Now, growing up, I never really had a connection to the Castlevania games, but I was going through my Super Nintendo collection recently and found that I do have Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo. I have zero memory ever playing this game. I'm guessing I probably did at some point, but it clearly didn't leave any mark on me. So for all intents and purposes, my real only exposure to Castlevania comes in the form of Symphony of the Night, which I played a couple years ago for the Kind of Funny book club, back when they started doing that, when they broke off and started doing their own thing. I was on their show and kind of talked about that, and that was really my first Castlevania experience, because I have zero recollection of playing any other Castlevania game. So with all of that said, I was probably just going to let the Castlevania Netflix show slip by. When it got announced, I wasn't really interested in it, but enough of my friends last week kind of said, oh my god, this is amazing, so I took some time to check it out. So it was only 4 episodes. I was like, yeah, I can devote a couple hours to that, sure. And I'm really glad I did. The 2D animation feels wonderfully refreshing in a landscape that is so often dominated by 3D animation, and it ties very nicely back to kind of the nostalgia of the 90s and the era that the source material is coming from. I think the action and the fight scenes that you have scattered throughout the series are really strong and really vibrant, and there's more humor than I anticipated in this very gothic kind of feel with death and morose imagery kind of all over the place. But you have Trevor Belmont out there who's frequently attempting to warn off his opponents who are very out of their own depth when they kind of threaten to fight him, and so it's just kind of laughable and humorous seeing him just kind of constantly say, you really don't want to do this, and that kind of stuff, and he just destroys them one by one. But I think what surprised me the most might be that I was so invested in the story by the end of it. So we're not going to delve into spoilers in this, but the show starts off really establishing Dracula as a sympathetic character, and it keeps him from being kind of one-note evil, I want to suck your blood, Dracula kind of thing. And then the season shifts to Trevor Belmont, the excommunicated vampire hunter from a long lineage of Belmont vampire hunters. And despite being shunned by the commoners he's out there trying to protect because of his family name, he defends them anyway against Dracula's forces. Throughout the story, he eventually comes across and kind of temporarily allies himself with a group of speakers who are other heretics branded by the church, and they're trying to figure out kind of their own means of fighting off and defending the world against Dracula and his destruction. And Belmont has grown so kind of accustomed to being a lone wolf that he doesn't really know how to handle being able to rely on others or trust others in this struggle. I think my biggest real gripe with the show comes in the form that it's too short. The 4-episode quote-unquote season really feels more like a pilot for what is to come. And it's been confirmed that there are another 8 episodes kind of in the works for the show. And the closest analog I have to this is when Comedy Central ordered direct-to-DVD movies for Futurama when they were bringing that show back. The 4 DVDs that they created also ended up working as their own kind of 4 standalone episodes within. So you can take those 4 DVDs and you essentially have a 16-episode season of Futurama for the purposes of syndication and rebroadcast and stuff like that. And this kind of feels like it was originally pitched as something like that. I think it works better using the binge-watch mentality of Netflix and just watching everything straight through. That's what I did. When it's broken up episodically, each episode doesn't necessarily have a beginning, middle, and an end. The 4 kind of, as a whole, tell a beginning and a middle, but even that doesn't really have a great end in terms of the broader fight against Dracula. There is an end, a conclusion to the 4 episodes here, but it really still feels like a beginning for something else. So that's my biggest gripe, is that there's not enough of this to really feel like a full season of something. But nevertheless, I am excited to see where they go from here. It serves as a great pilot for what is to come, I think. More so, in fact, than its own season of quote-unquote television. So those are my thoughts on Season 1 of the new Netflix series Castlevania. Let me know what you think about the series in the comments below. And as always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. You can read my full written review of the show, which I've largely covered here, but there might be a couple other things there, in the link in the description below over at TrevorTrove.com. And as always, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.